Logan Carter never thought he'd find himself asking the questions that now haunted him. How did we get here? What did I miss? Was I ever enough? He stared out of the window of his one-bedroom apartment in Denver, Colorado, watching the rain tap rhythmically against the glass. It was a quiet Saturday night, the kind that used to be filled with laughter, takeout containers, and long conversations. Now it was just silence, broken only by memories. He remembered the first time he met Harper. She had walked into the bookstore he worked at, bundled in a mustard-yellow scarf, asking if they had any books on mindfulness. There was a spark in her eyes, a confidence that drew him in. She had a warmth about her, but it was clear she was used to leading, not following. He liked that. He offered her a book he had read himself, and when she smiled and said, "Thanks, Logan," he knew he wanted to see her again. Things moved quickly. Dates turned into late-night calls, which turned into weekends together. Harper was ambitious, working in digital marketing, always chasing the next big client or campaign. Logan was quieter, more reserved, the kind of guy who preferred cozy corners and meaningful conversation over loud parties and constant motion. But somehow, their differences complemented each other, at least at first. As time passed, Logan noticed subtle changes. Harper's tone grew shorter, her patience thinner. She began to cancel plans last minute, claiming she had deadlines or networking events. When they were together, she was often on her phone, scrolling through messages or taking calls. Logan tried to bring it up gently. "Is everything okay between us?" he asked one night as they sat on the couch, a movie playing on mute in the background. Harper barely looked up. "Yeah, just stressed. Work is insane. I feel like I barely see you anymore." She sighed, her eyes still on her phone. "Logan, not everything has to be about us. Can you give me some space?" He nodded even though it stung. Logan believed in love. Not the movie kind. The kind built through patience, communication, and respect. But slowly, he began to realize he was the only one trying. Harper started treating his efforts like obligations, his affection like background noise. There were days he'd cook her dinner, only to hear her say she already ate. Times he'd compliment her outfit, and she'd respond with, "Do you always have to say something cheesy?" She didn't see him anymore, not really. And worst of all, she didn't seem to care. Logan began to shrink himself. He stopped planning dates. He stopped texting first. He waited to see if she'd notice. Days passed. Then a week. She didn't call. When he finally gathered the courage to end things, it wasn't a dramatic conversation. Just a quiet truth exchanged in the living room. "I don't think this is working anymore," he said calmly. Harper looked up surprised. "What? You're breaking up with me?" He nodded. "You don't value me, Harper. I've tried over and over, but I feel invisible to you." She stared at him for a moment, then scoffed. "Fine. Maybe you're right. I've just been busy." Logan didn't argue. He let her leave. And the silence that followed was both heavy and freeing. What Harper didn't realize at the time was that losing someone who genuinely loved her would hurt in ways she couldn't yet understand. First, she felt nothing. She told her friends it was mutual, said he wasn't ambitious enough for her lifestyle. She buried herself in work, in parties, in people who didn't know the whole story. But then came the little reminders. A playlist he had made. The way he always brought her coffee just how she liked it. The way he looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. It was during a cold morning in November, while walking alone to her favorite cafe, that it hit her. There was no one texting her to ask how her meeting went. No one waiting to hear about her day. No one to notice when she wore her favorite perfume. That emptiness, the absence of someone who genuinely cared, was louder than any rejection. Harper began checking Logan's social media, curious if he had moved on. When she saw a photo of him smiling with friends, something twisted in her chest. It wasn't that she wanted him back. At least that's what she told herself. It was that he seemed happy without her. She tried to reach out once, texting, "Hey, just wanted to check in. Hope you're doing well." Logan saw the message, stared at it for a while, then locked his phone. He had already grieved what they had. He had cried in private, questioned himself, wondered if he wasn't enough. But now he knew better. He was more than enough. Just not for someone who didn't recognize his value. Harper never texted again. Months passed, and Logan grew stronger. He found peace in solitude, strength in self-respect. He started a podcast on emotional intelligence, sharing his experiences to help others understand their worth. Listeners began to write in, thanking him for speaking about things men were often afraid to say. One message stood out to him. "Logan, your story about giving love to someone who didn't value it really hit home. I thought I was alone in feeling this way. Thank you for showing me that walking away doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing yourself." He smiled, realizing that his pain had turned into purpose. Meanwhile, Harper dated different people, but none of them made her feel what Logan did. She'd remember the small things, the way he'd brush her hair behind her ear when she was focused, the notes he'd leave in her bag, the way he'd listen without interrupting. What hurt her the most wasn't losing Logan. It was realizing she never truly saw what she had until it was gone. And by the time she did, it was too late. She had mistaken his quiet love for weakness, his gentleness for lack of strength. But now she saw the truth. It takes real strength to walk away from someone who doesn't value you. Logan had changed. He carried himself differently now, with calm confidence. He had boundaries, dreams, and he no longer accepted half-love. When he finally met someone new, Jenna, a teacher with a heart for music and long walks, he recognized the difference immediately. She listened. She laughed at his jokes. She never made him feel like he was asking for too much. One night, as they sat on a blanket under the stars, Jenna looked at him and said, "I don't know who hurt you, but I just want to say, see you. And I appreciate the way you love." Logan felt his chest tighten, not from pain but from healing. He had been seen, valued, loved. And somewhere across the city, Harper scrolled through her phone, paused on an old photo of the two of them, and whispered to herself, "I didn't know what I had." But Logan wasn't hers to have anymore. This is what hurts a woman most, when she doesn't value you and you finally walk away. When she realizes too late that real love doesn't beg to be seen. It simply leaves when it isn't. Logan's story became a reflection of quiet resilience. A reminder that being undervalued by someone you love doesn't define your worth. It defines theirs. He had learned that walking away wasn't a weakness. It was the beginning of becoming the man who would only be loved in